Hi, I'm Dan Farnworth. You can't see me now, but that's probably not a bad thing anyway. Now, obviously, the title's changed a little bit, but ultimately, what tonight's about is my findings in the mental health world and what's been going on, and really what's underpinned where I am today. So, without further ado, I'll see if I can change the slide, and it works. Hopefully, it will. Just a few things that we're going to discuss. To be honest with you, what I've done is I've kind of picked out the best bits of what I've come across, and hopefully it will resonate and it will help some of you understand where I am, why I'm here, and hopefully where the emergency services are, where the NHS possibly is, and where we could be in the future. But before we go on, I think this is a case of if you know, you know. You see these quite a lot at the moment, but it is a warning that we will be discussing mental health. We won't be discussing any particular case studies. It's just literally, hopefully, a really positive spin on mental health and well-being. So this is a little bit about me. I'm Dan Farnworth, and you know, I've been involved in quite a few things, but I've got to be honest with you, this has all started by being in quite a sorry place myself. I was involved in quite a traumatic incident, which led towards me being diagnosed with PTSD. And that kind of led on to many other things. So that program, which I'm sure everybody's probably heard of. If not, it was a program by Mind, which was developed to support mental health of the emergency services. And they did some research. Now, if I was an academic, I'd probably be saying that this research is a little bit toward, and an awful lot has been done since. Quick disclaimer. A lot of these presentations are angled towards, we'd probably call that key workers, to be honest with you, or at least emergency responders or emergency services staff would consider suicide during their career. And when I was asked this question the first time around, and I even thought 1 in 100 was a shocking statistic, but it turned out it was actually 1 in 4, which absolutely I found unpalatable, to be honest with you. I found it really difficult to understand how our emergency services, our NHS, the people that help other people, were having such dire figures. And when they looked into it, they found out there's numerous contributing factors. This was partly down to stigma, culture, long working hours, a relentless workload, and a lack of formal support structures. Now, I'm pleased to say, since 2016, a lot of work has been done. I'm sure some people will have seen a difference within their services if they're in a service, or at least have heard about changes and implementations if they're not already working, if you're not already working for a service. I would say it's great that we've come so far, but we still have a long way to go. And I think we'll kind of start to understand that as this presentation progresses. But before we press on, I kind of wanted just to touch on something that I've been involved in and give you a little bit of an insight of what it's all about, and maybe how you could even get involved yourself. So in 2018, I was awarded something called a Winston Churchill Fellowship. I imagine there may even be Churchill Fellows on here as we speak. A Winston Churchill Fellowship is a travel to learn program. You apply to the Churchill Trust, and if you're successful, they will award you with funds to travel to carry out your research. I made my application to travel to the USA and Canada to research mental health of the emergency services and to look at what findings we could bring back to implement within the UK. And as I say, I was really lucky to be awarded this. A couple of pictures of me here with the guys that I met along the way. You can see the itinerary there. It was quite full on, to be honest. Yeah, in hindsight, I probably went to too many places. But there's a number of things that I found that really struck home how important day-to-day well-being and mental health is, and how actually changing the smallest things and the smallest aspects of our day-to-day activities can really change who we are and how we're able to deal with aspects of well-being, if that makes sense. So the whole fellowship was documented in my findings, and believe it or not, although it was done in 2018 and the report was completed in 2019, it coincided with COVID-19, and unfortunately, this still has not been released. And the reason that it wasn't released is we wanted to aim for maximum impact. We didn't want it to be kind of never spoken about because COVID was on the table. So I think we're kind of getting towards a place now where this is going to be released. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of an insight into a few of the things that I found. So within, I mean, obviously this is quite an extensive document, but within the document, what you will find is that mental health and well-being of the emergency services is split into two categories now. You can see that on page 9 there, the right-hand page, that it was broken down into two things: day-to-day well-being being possibly the most important aspect, and then also post-traumatic incident support. So what happens following a traumatic incident, and how are you supported, or do you need support at all? And how them two matched. And actually, we needed to separate them two to understand where we need to go in the future. And the reason I say this is because I wanted to really kind of touch on the day-to-day well-being, because we do hear an awful lot about post-traumatic incident support, and I think it's incredibly important that we do. But I wanted to just really touch today on the day-to-day well-being aspect. I think in order for me to discuss the whole findings, I think we need perhaps a full day to do it. So I'm going to press on with the day-to-day well-being, but before I do that, I just want to discuss how you can become a Winston Churchill Fellow, because this is not an exclusive club. You don't have to be an academic with a doctorate or a master's. I applied at the time. I was an ambulance technician. I had GCSEs and a wealth of experience and lived experience of mental health. And that was more than enough for me to be successful. I would encourage anybody who has a passion about anything. It doesn't need to be the emergency services. In fact, it doesn't need to be mental health. It could be you want to research a particular aspect of trauma care. You want to research a particular aspect of cardiac support or care, critical care, you name it. You can apply each year. So if anybody's interested, have a look at the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust website. I would say it's possibly one of the most life-changing things that I've ever done, and I would definitely recommend it to anybody. At the end of the presentation is my email address. If you're interested in doing it, please get in touch. I would love to help anybody get involved in this real life-changing opportunity. So anyway, back to my findings. So I'm going to talk you through a day in the life of the ambulance service. Please bear with me till the end when you start listening to this. Don't start logging out until you've heard me to the end now. So, life in the ambulance service. I've been the person, and this is what my day-to-day used to be. So I will start the day, and I think nothing changes around here. Nobody cares about us. And to be honest with you, I feel like all they do is they care about statistics. All they care about is statistics. And I genuinely used to believe that. But actually, that's not right. That is not right at all. And what I learned is to start thinking in a different way. So now, when my day starts, I would perhaps think along the lines of, you know what, I've got the best. By the way, I took that picture. I hope you can still see it clearly. I took that picture. That's me, my little ambulance there. Yeah, I'm proud of that. So it's the best job in the world. I have amazing colleagues. I cannot deny that. We have amazing colleagues, and we're so lucky to have amazing colleagues within the NHS, the emergency services, the people we call on for support. We're just incredibly lucky, and we do have amazing colleagues. And I get paid to help people. What's not to love about that? You never know what you're going to be doing next. And one thing I can say for definite is that every day is absolutely different. And it really is the best job in the world. And I love that. So when I look back, I'm thinking like that now. Why did I used to think the way that I did before, with the negative aspects and the negative thinking? So what I learned at my Churchill Fellowship, I met a wonderful lady called Mary Ann who specialised in positive thinking. And she taught me this. The first thing she taught me was the difference between happiness and optimism. And I thought, well, why would somebody want to teach me this? But ultimately, what I was informed and I was told is that happiness is an emotion and optimism is your belief about the future. And together, they create happiness and positivity. Happiness and optimism come together to create positivity. And that absolutely makes sense. So when you look back at the statements of an optimistic outlook on your day, it makes you feel so much better. I'm ready to go on and tackle the day again. So this is the positive thinking model. Some people may have seen this before. Some people may not have done. Now, in a nutshell, the theory is our thoughts determine our beliefs impact on our feelings influence our actions, and our actions shape our thoughts, and so on and so forth, and it goes round and round. Now, why do I mention this? I hear you say, well, obviously it informs positive thinking, and it's really important to understand the positive thinking model, so to speak, and how it's easy to actually slip off the positive thinking model as well. But please just remember, from this model, our beliefs and our feelings, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So, common mental health problems. We've maybe not all heard it. These are incredibly important mental health problems, and they absolutely do play a part in our day-to-day lives. We have, patients, we have colleagues, we have maybe ourselves some form of mental health problem, and they're all they're all impacted by your day-to-day well-being. But what we're going to discuss now is something that isn't a recognised mental health problem, but I'm hoping it's something that might actually ring home to people, especially when we take into consideration our beliefs and our feelings that we learn from the positive thinking cycle there. So, moral injury is what I'm getting towards. Now, this was a massive thing in the USA and also in Canada, and everybody touching it all the time. So what is moral injury? Well, the textbook explanation of moral injury is to understand that moral injury is understood to be strong cognitive and emotional response that can occur following events that violate a person's moral or ethical code. Now, that's a textbook example, but the down Farnworth School of Understanding is that moral injury is ultimately your beliefs and your thoughts of how something should be. So in an ideal world, I think actually somebody who has a fall at home should receive an immediate response. In the real world, that might not happen. So if I attend in my little ambulance to somebody who's been waiting on the floor for maybe 4 hours, I feel that that's not right. And it's nobody's fault, but it has an impact on my moral grounds. Similarly, if you think of other examples within end-of-life care or within the way perhaps services are run, we all have a better idea of how a service should be run. So moral injury plays a part in our day-to-day well-being, and it's very, very rarely spoken about, but ultimately it's very, very important. And a few people said to me, well, it's all right, you say moral injury is important, Dan, but can you back that up with some evidence? Well, ironically, this statement was posted on a very well-known journal. I'll let you all take it in, but it does say that healthcare staff working during the COVID-19 pandemic might experience moral injury because they perceive that they received inadequate protective equipment, or when their workload is such that they deliver care of a standard that falls well below what they would usually consider to be good enough. So who wrote that? That was in the Lancet. So as we all know, the Lancet's quite a reliable source of information. If I was really good, I'd have put a reference at the bottom, but there you go. But ultimately, moral injury plays a part, and it really does make sense to me that moral injury is possibly one of the biggest causes of not mental health problems, but certainly upset within the service. And I believe that, if that's going on and then you experience another incident or something else is happening, they kind of all combine to create, you know, to create maybe some sort of even worse problems for you down the road, if that makes sense. I apologize if I'm going like a steam train, by the way. I'm just very, very scared that this internet connection is going to drop off again. So obviously what we've explored there is moral injury and positive thinking, and also the Churchill Fellowship. But one thing I really would like to touch on is, and I do this all the time, is when to seek help. And I'm trying, really, I promise you, I'm trying my hardest not to teach anybody to suck eggs, but I think it's really, really important that sometimes you go over it. It's really good for me to go through it as well sometimes, because I think it helps you refocus and re-understand when you need to help and when you need to reach out. So when should you seek help? Well, first of all, we start off by saying what helps to keep you on a strong ground, give you the strong foundation, so to speak. And as perhaps sort of the 5 ways to well-being or different things like that. But being active, eating well, sleeping well, parts of not only daily, weekly, but it also perform part of your yearly self-care. If you can work on each one of these, now then, this is going to be a real test of things. So this is the 5 ways to well-being. This is a chap called Nick Marks. Nick Marks invented the 5 ways to well-being. And I don't think it's my place to sit here and try and explain it to you. So we're going to try and let Nick Marks do it, because he does it in a really good way. I'm not going to say anymore. We'll see if it works.
We just wanted to summarize the evidence about what we know makes people happier. And so the 5 ways are active words that try and capture a sort of universal positive action that's going to work. And then the idea is that you can have a myriad of possibilities underneath this word. So the 5 ways go connect, which is that social relationships are the most important thing for our happiness and well-being. We are relational beings, humans. We're all created through a relationship. You know, our mother and father got together and made us. That's a relationship. We come out of that. We're brought up in a network of relationships. So connect is the most important. The next is be active. Is that physical activity is great for our emotional health as well as our physical health. We shouldn't be surprised at this. You know, emotions are experienced in our bodies. So the difference between emotion and a thought is just in our head. Emotions have bodily responses with them. So any emotion that we feel, we will feel in our physical body. And the feedback mechanism works the other way around. Move our body, it will shift our emotions. Fastest way out of a bad mood is to do something active. It can be anything, but you know, it's getting up off the sofa and doing something. So be active. The third one is take notice, which is about being engaged in the world. So it's about mindfulness. It's about noticing what's going on within you, noticing what's going on around with you, being alert to what's going on around. The next one is keep learning. You guys are doing that, you know, keeping your learning going through your life. I know that, you know, I've hopped from jobs, you know, if I don't feel I'm learning things. That, you know, when I go stale from learning, that, which is that, we actually feel great when we give to other people.
So that's Nick Marks. I think that really resonates. It certainly resonates with me. And actually, from time to time, I come back and make sure I'm sticking to the 5 ways to well-being, especially having been where I've been. I'm sure many of us have been in that bad place, that actually by doing these things, it really does help you to keep your solid foundations. And what I do personally is I keep a checklist. Now, when I was in possibly the worst place I was in, I kept a daily checklist. However, as time went by, this moved to a weekly checklist a month. And to be honest with you, now I'll probably do it bi-monthly. But it's never a bad thing just to nip back and to make sure you're doing all these things that are in the list. We'll make the list available to you just in case it's not very clear. But it's basically a weekly self-care checklist. And it's so important to help you keep that even keel and to help you keep well, especially because the majority of us are there to help other people in whatever form it is. It's important that we're able to keep ourselves well. Back to the old saying, put your own oxygen mask on before helping others. The other question we get asked very often is, when is the right time to seek help? And I suppose it's a really, when is the right time? And ultimately, the right time is any time. There's a few examples on the screen there, but they are absolutely not exhaustive. There's never a wrong time to seek help. And actually, sometimes if you're well, it is good to seek help because it helps you understand where your support mechanisms and your support structures are in case you ever need them. And actually, that may be opening up support structures and support mechanisms to other people too. Where to go for help? That's another massive question. A lot of people ask that an awful lot of the time. Where do I go for help? Who do I turn to? And you can see the list there, but ultimately, one thing that I absolutely love is the statement at the bottom, and that's seeking help isn't always easy, especially when you're not feeling well. It can take time and may not be straightforward, but it's important to remember that you are not alone and that you deserve support. And that makes the hairs on my arm stand up. And I remember that saying because not only for me, but if anybody else ever turns around to me and asks for help or support, that is probably one of the best things you could say to them. You don't need to be a counsellor, you don't need to be an expert, but if you can try and convey that to somebody who is reaching out for support, you have absolutely nailed it. And just another thing to really touch on is stigma. Stigma is something that is such, I'd actually let's take it back. Stigma back to 2016 when them statistics came out from Mind that we discussed earlier, the 1 in 4 statistic. We've come a long way with the stigma. There's been lots of programs, there's been lots of changes to the way we work, and stigma has come so far. But I still think we've got a long way to go. And I think it's all of our responsibility to ensure that we're able to talk and people feel able to talk. And actually by, addressing things and approaching things in the wrong way sometimes encourages people to close up, and we really don't want that to happen. So just have a think about that. The other thing around stigma, and I suppose it's not really on stigma, this is just the day-to-day conduct of yourself. I walk into the room sometimes at work in the morning and say, "Morning, you all right?" And what I realise is that sometimes I don't even listen to somebody's response. I say "all right" as like a kind of just a normal morning greeting, but actually sometimes people turn around to you and after you said "good morning, are you all right?" and they'll say, "Oh no, I've had a really bad night, I've not slept," and they'll start opening up and discussing and talking to you. And often I used to just laugh it off and carry on, but now I make a real conscious effort to try and listen to what people are telling me and what they're saying and understand, because actually what you'll find is when you start engaging with that person and listening to what they're saying, you'll be amazed that what you ultimately by what you were doing is you're letting that person open up, and that might be all they need that day to make them feel great and happy about themselves. So really do think about that listening skill as well. Just another, now I'm going to apologize for this next slide already. It's in dollars. The last time I did it was in America, but it's still true. If you had $86,400, I think that's right, yeah, $86,400 or pounds, or Scottish pounds as it is for me up here, and somebody stole £10, would you be angry and throw away the £86,390? Well, I can tell you now, if you're going to throw it away, throw it my way. But you wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't throw away that kind of money because somebody stole £10. Well, on the other side of the coin, there are 86,400 seconds in each day. So what we're saying is don't let a negative 10 seconds ruin the rest of your day, and try and think about it that way, because that is really, really powerful. Try and remember that one, because that is so powerful. Just another aspect to quickly touch on. As I said, this is kind of my list of my best slides that I have, and it is definitely a whistle stop tour now. But I do want to say that well-being is fun. And for me, well-being underpins mental health, it underpins people being healthy, physical wellness, mental wellness, everything is encompassed under well-being. But one thing I just want to say is that well-being is fun. There's people here from all around the country, all around the UK, if not all around the world, perhaps. And you can do something, and sometimes a little thing is a big thing. So there's a couple of examples on the screen here. There was a dance off in Blackpool where people came together and danced for mental health to raise awareness, and that really changed cultures. There was a bathtub race with the emergency services. It brought people together. People had a laugh. They had fun. They built the vessels together, and they raised money for mental health. The walk from Scarborough to Blackpool for mental health, I could go on. The list is endless. But please understand that if you do something, you organise something, you're bringing people together, as long as it's COVID safe, of course. But you're bringing people together, you're changing cultures, and you're starting that conversation. And that is all it takes, because well-being is probably the most happy and exciting thing you can help to give somebody. And after everything's said and done, people often say, well, that's great. What's next? You know, we've come a long way since 2016. What's next? Where do we need to go? What do we need to do? And I think if we bring it back to these 3 points, we need to continue to look at the culture. We need to improve the culture of our services by reducing the stigma, like we just said. We need to continue raising the awareness and starting the conversation around the workplace. And as many people that continue to have the conversation of mental health, the better the stigma will be reduced. We need to continue the support. We need to ensure we're offering true support for our colleagues, including resilience training, offering the right support in the right time, in the right place, but most importantly, from day one that somebody starts in the service. And I think that we still have a long way to go. I don't see any service that is 100% where they need to be yet, although we are on the way, don't get me wrong. And also with health, provide healthy working conditions and the tools to ensure colleagues are able to live a happy, healthy and fit lifestyle at work, and most importantly, at home. Because if we're not able to live healthy at home, we're never going to be healthy at work. And that kind of brings me on to my closing slides. And again, I do apologise, it was a whistle-stop tour, but I just want to end on a couple of things. And this is perhaps the biggest finding for me from my Winston Churchill Fellowship. In New Jersey, oh, sorry, I missed a slide. What's next? We need to network. And this is really important. Alone, we can achieve amazing things, but when we work together, the possibilities are endless. We need to continue to come together to share ideas. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, because there's so many good things going on out there. We need to come together and continue to learn together. Back to where I was my biggest finding from America was the stigma-free zones. Now, feel free to have a look. It's very much kind of in the early build and test and trial stage. But basically, the stigma-free zones was a campaign that was started in New Jersey at a place called Paramus. And you can see the logo there in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And it was a very plain, very bland, and it didn't even say it was about mental health. And that was done intentionally, because what they wanted people to do was to come up and say, what do you mean stigma-free about what? Well, stigma-free from mental health. And it was a campaign that was started, and this is growing day by day across the USA. And we've managed to bring it back here to the UK, hopefully to be launched later in the, if not later in the year, early 2022. And hopefully it will provide a platform for anybody who wants to be involved in mental health, but doesn't feel like they have the capacity to do it alone, the tools, the ammunition, and the support and the peer support to really get your ambitions, your programs and your plans off the ground. So please do have a look at the stigmafree.com website and see what you think. Please provide feedback as well. We'd love to hear what you think, because we think this is really exciting, and we think it could be possibly the next step to really reaching out to the grassroots to create that change. Because we all know, well, I certainly feel like I know that change is created on the shop floor at grassroots level. And to finish, whilst traveling across the USA and Canada, I was told that if people don't know where you are now, if people don't know what life is like in your services, how are you ever going to influence change outside of the service? And what they meant by that is actually change comes from the top. Change comes from government. Change comes by people government saying, you know, you need to be working to this standard. You need to be, this is the minimum acceptable level of mental well-being that we're accepting. Change comes from outside, supported from the inside. So it was said to me, if people don't know where you're at, how are we going to do that? Now, there's some fantastic programs on the TV. I mean, I was watching Ambulance the other night and I saw some of the old colleagues, and it was just absolutely fantastic to watch. It does raise awareness of the fantastic work we're doing. But off the back of that, I also wrote a book, and I started to pen down my own ideas, my own feelings, what I was going through. And I put them together as a bit of a journal. I didn't really know what I was going to do with them, to be honest with you. But amazingly, and I don't quite know how, I managed to throw it together to make a book, which turned out to be an Amazon #1 bestseller. I'm going to say this now: it's the best book I've ever written. It's the only book I've ever written. So there you go. But please do have a look if you're interested. I know TRAUMACARE do have them available, I think. I'm sure Dawn will explain to us in a moment. We've got a question section coming up, but there are my contact details. Thank you once again. I'm so sorry I've gone like a steam train, and I'm so sorry for the Wi-Fi problem to start with, but I'm so glad we got there. Thank you very much.